Some big news in the world of professional wrestling outside of AEW and WWE. New Japan Pro Wrestling's coming back, and MLW signs a big streaming deal. We talk about it all next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Ralph, let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Tuesday afternoon or Monday night, depending on where in the world you're watching. We got the news. New Japan Pro Wrestling is back as soon as this coming Monday for this mystery card that's happening. Not only that, we're going to get the New Japan Cup. The winner of that match, winner of that tournament, will go on to face Tetsuya Naito for both the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championship at Dominion, which will be with fans. A third capacity in Osaka. So, Ralph, big news for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Big news for wrestling fans around the world. We're getting fans back.
We are getting fans back, and we're getting fans back because Japan has done such a good job at flattening the curve in their country.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that people are eager to really get fans back and get that type of interaction and that type of, feeling from the crowd when you're watching on TV or just being able to be at a live event. I think it's definitely notable, just if you compare it to like NXT this past weekend. NXT. Any of the takeovers, when you talk about them, the fan reaction in the crowd is really one of the things that really makes it special because they're so invested in the product. It was very noticeable that the fans were not there this past week.
Right.
There's been ways to work around it. As you can see with AEW, they've done a really good job at it. WWE has tried to incorporate a little bit of a similar approach, but I think from what I understand, New Japan plans to have a third of the max capacity there. So, even though it's not a full stadium or a full attendance and they're not packing it to the brim, it's still one step in the right direction, a step towards normalcy.
It really is. Now, obviously, the New Japan Cup tournament will be empty arenas, but still the fact that we are getting New Japan Pro Wrestling back is awesome. And you look at the brackets really quick, there's some pretty good matchups here. In the first round, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Taichi and Kota Ibushi versus Zack Sabre Jr. Those are the two tag teams feuding for the tag team championships. And the winner of those two matches will face off each other. So we could see either Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. face off against each other, Kota Ibushi and Hiroshi Tanahashi facing off against each other. You also have the possibility of Sonata and Shingo Takagi facing off against each other as two LIJ stablemates. Because Kazuchika Okada gets Gato in the first round. So, I mean, there's some pretty good matches here on the bracket for the first round. But I do have to point out that, obviously, because of what's going on, there are some big names missing. Jay White will not be on the New Japan Cup. Will Ospreay will not be in the New Japan Cup. Now, whether or not they're going to be a part of New Japan's matches between now and Dominion is still to be determined. But right now, that they're not there. So, while they're just like WWE and AEW, we have a limited roster, obviously with travel restrictions. So is that going to hurt them, or do you think their roster is pretty deep enough that they can run this New Japan Cup without guys like Jay White, Will Ospreay? Even Kenta is not in this tournament.
Yeah. I mean, of the people you just named, those are certainly three high-profile guys that I can't imagine they're excited to be moving forward without. I think they do have a good roster, and it's pretty deep, but I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how you look at it. You can look at it from this perspective. They can use this as an opportunity to potentially maybe bring somebody from the upper mid-card to like the main event level, or they could use it to further a feud that's already been going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they necessarily have to dwell on the fact that they don't have those guys. They can also use it as a way to push somebody from the lower mid upper card to the main event level, create new feuds and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's disappointing you won't see some of those guys, especially somebody like Jay White, especially somebody like Kenta, especially considering that they were kind of two guys that were really getting kind of pushed, especially Kenta with his heel push right around the time when I think the whole pandemic started. So
right.
It's not like they can't necessarily pick up where they left off with those guys, but not all is lost, I guess you could look at it that way.
Right. Now, obviously, there's this mystery card that's happening on June 15th, so anything could happen on that day, and any wrestlers that might not be on the New Japan Cup could still appear And I know where Jay White's from New Zealand, and they basically have opened up their entire country with no coronavirus cases at all. So perhaps they're just not putting him in the tournament and can use him in other matches outside the tournament. So we'll see what goes on with that. But let's move on to the other big news happening outside AEW and WWE, and that is MLW has announced a partnership with DAZN. They will now be streaming on DAZN, part of the package that is $99.99 a year or $19.99 a month. Part of their package includes exclusive boxing fights, Bellator matches, archive fights from Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and other great boxers and fighters. I think this is a huge bit of news that we got for MLW. Obviously, they already have something with Fight TV. They're on BN Sports, but another streaming service to get them worldwide recognition, another promotion. Maybe not necessarily at the top level of AEW or WWE, but maybe that second tier where they're getting surpassed the likes of Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. This is one step closer in that direction.
I think it's just interesting that other companies are trying to figure out ways to really, get in the running, so to speak. I think one thing that these past couple of years, especially since AEW has been formed, that people can kind of look at and probably all agree on is the fact that, it used to be where you either watched WWE or you didn't watch professional wrestling. Yeah, maybe you had the opportunity to watch like some New Japan, some All Japan, for a while. Ring of Honor, maybe not even to that type of extent. I mean, you really had to go out of your way to find other companies other than WWE or TNA back when, we're maybe going back like 10, 15 years ago, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, with the emergence of AEW, them getting a major national TV deal, that's not just good for AEW, that's good for the wrestling industry because, companies who, as long as AEW is successful, they'll potentially take a risk on smaller companies. We see certain things happening with NWA, obviously. MLW is the latest company to really kind of jump into the pool and take a swing at this. So I think it's exciting. I think it's especially exciting considering they have a really, really good group of young talent, which is something we talked about a few weeks ago. It's surprising that they've been able to really kind of maintain or retain a lot of that talent considering there is a lot of places for people to go. So knowing that they were able to retain certain people, Tom Lawler,
Brian Pillman Jr.,
Alexander Hammerstone, Jacob Fatu, all guys that were recently signed back to MLW. So I think the future is very bright for MLW, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people with some good quality matches.
Yeah, and obviously this is one step closer. If they could get something like DAZN signed up for them, and I know BN Sports, it's very similar to Impact Wrestling and Access TV, where not necessarily everybody gets it, but it's a step in the right direction. And if people get enough buzz on MLW, it could lead to a mid-tier cable network that a lot of cable systems will have. Maybe like, just throwing it out there hypothetically, but like a Paramount network. If they decide that they want to get back into wrestling, the former Spike TV and TNN when it was on Raw and TNA had it for a little bit, that's a possibility. Now that we're seeing professional wrestling kind of growing, and yes, the growth kind of halted a little bit with what's going on in the world, but it seems like even when that is still going on, Impact Wrestling is able to sign wrestlers like Deonna Purrazzo. MLW is able to get a streaming package with DAZN. AEW and WWE are able to get weekly programming on. Whether some people like it or not, it's still there. And they're still doing fairly decent in the ratings, depending on what news coverage is going on that week. So I think this is very, very good for the wrestling world. And the fact that New Japan Pro Wrestling, even with over 100 days absent, not having one show, are able to get their wrestlers ready to go, have the New Japan Cup, have Dominion, and then you have MLW. Great news. Great news for the professional wrestling world. Very simple episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble here, Ralph. So let us know your comments here on New Japan Pro Wrestling. Give us your predictions on who's going to win the New Japan Cup and face Naito at Dominion. Tell us what you think of MLW. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name's Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.